Good afternoon. I'm Eric Peterson. I'm here at the Complete Angler in Darien, Connecticut. I've got the privilege today of showing you how to tie my spawning shrimp. It'll be the first time that it's ever been filmed the way I like to tie it. Okay, I am going to position my thread so that it's about one and a half eye lengths behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to create a little bump for our dumbbell eyes. Back, create one more bump, leave a thin waist in between the bumps, bring the thread back and position between those two bumps. I'm going to take a set of 4mm brass dumbbell eyes. I prefer the brass over the lead because the brass is much stronger. The lead eyes will break. I'll tie that in, figure eight it a couple times, and then helicopter the thread between the dumbbell eyes and the hook shank. 4 or 5 turns in one direction, reverse it, come back the other way, lock it with a couple turns over the top. I'm going to come to the far side and I'm going to wrap the thread around one of the dumbbells 3-4 times, helicopter underneath again, and then reverse, and I'll come to the far side, or my side, and wrap the eye again and helicopter underneath. Build a little dam on the back side, front side of the eyes, and that is locked in very, very tight. Very hard to move at this point. Wrap the thread back to a position somewhere between the barb and the point of the hook. I'm going to take 2 shrimp eyes, smaller size. I'm going to use red today. Position them so they're even and splayed out in opposite directions. I'm going to measure from the eye of the hook to somewhere between the barb and the point, and that'll be the length of the stalks for the eyes. Tie it flat on top. Wrap back, and I'm going to wrap back so that the wraps go down the bend of the hook slightly. I want the eyes to be upward when the hook is inverted. I'm going to take the eye stalk closest to me. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to post it, much like I would on a classic Catskill dry fly wood duck wing. Do the same thing to the far side. Wrap up, pull the thread down, and it just forms a little base there. It'll help prevent the eyes from crossing, and it just helps keep them in position. I also like to take a little drop of super glue. I'm going to drop that one drop right about at the point of the hook, and then I'm just going to bleed this down, bleed the glue down towards the eyes. Okay. Bring the thread back to about the point. I'm going to take some fluorofiber or pink organza. Put that around the back side of the thread, wrap it around so that's positioned like so, and I'm going to stagger the lengths. I'm going to pull out a couple fibers so we have long, medium, and short lengths. Pull the thread up, slide the organza down, and wrap it back to that furthest point, that being the eye stalks. It's a little long. I'm just going to trim that a little bit. Okay. Next step is to take some craft fur. Cut it close to the skin. Take the bunch, make sure the tips are all nice and tapered and shrimpy looking. I'm going to pinch that bunch in about the middle of the length and pull out a lot of the soft, short under hair. I'm going to measure this from the eye of the hook to the tip of the red eyes. Now it's approximately 1.5 lengths of the hook. I'm going to bring the thread up to the point. Tie that in, a couple turns, lock it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to twist. I'm going to separate the craft fur from the organza or floral fiber. I'm going to give it a little twist to help compress the bulk. And then I'm going to wrap that back to the tie-in point of the eye stalks. Trim the excess craft fur. Take some flat braid for flash and tie that in flat over the back down to the furthest point, tie-in point to the rear. I'm going to cut the flash so it's about half the length or so of the craft fur. I'm going to separate the flat braid so it blends with the craft fur, and bring the thread back forward a little bit. Tie in the legs. I'm going to take 2 of the orange fire tip silly legs, and I'm going to tie that in flat over the back. Give it a little stretch as I tie back. And we can trim those later on, but they're just flat over the back. I'm going to take 1 strand of the silly legs sand color, barred sand, wrap it around the thread, make sure the ends are even. I'm going to position the thread as I'm pulling it towards me so it's on the side of the head. Slide the silly legs down, 1 wrap, lock it so it's on, 1 leg is on my side, take the other leg opposite, tie it down so both legs are equal length and splayed out from the body. I'm going to take a little orange egg yarn, just a fine little wisp. Wrap it around the thread again. Bring the thread straight up, slide the yarn down, wrap over and lock the yarn in, and trim that rather short. That's our little egg sac. I'm going to bring the thread back to the point. I'm going to invert the vise and we're going to prepare for our 3 steps of rabbit that really make the spawning shrimp what it is. Trim, excuse me, trim the bunch of rabbit. I'm going to pull out some of the underfur, not all of it, but some of it. The guard hairs are what really are important here. You can see how wispy they are and tapered. So with the thread at about the point, I'm going to measure the rabbit so the rabbit extends just past the red eyes. Pinch loop straight up, straight down, tie that in on top of the hook. Really do want to make sure that it stays centered with the hook. Sort of preen that back, use the bend of the hook to center that. And that's our first bunch. We're going to bring the thread to the middle of the hook. We're going to repeat with another bunch of rabbit. Do the exact same thing. Hold the tips, pull out some of the underfur, but again, you definitely want to leave a little bit in there. It gives just a little bit of bulk under the fly and allows the tips to be wispy with a lot of movement. I'm going to measure the length of the wing from the tie-in point so the tips extend halfway into the previous bunch. Directly on top. Lock that down. Trim the excess. Once that's locked down, because I've positioned everything directly on top of the hook, it's a little bit narrower than I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my thumbnail down directly on top of the tie-in point to help fan that out. It just flattens it and will flatten and flare the rabbit out to give the body shape, more shrimp-like. Bring the thread forward. I'm going to position the thread so it's halfway between the dumbbell eyes and the eye of the hook, and we're going to tie in one more bunch. Pull out the underfur. And like the previous bunch, we're going to measure this so it's halfway into the previous bunch. I'm going to measure that. And this bunch, I'm going to trim the butt square at the measurement so I don't have to cut afterwards. Tie it in directly on top. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to use my thumbnail to help flare that rabbit a little bit. And tie that down. Whip finish. And we're done with the tying part. The last step will be a little bit of head cement or super glue on the head of the fly, and on the back side I'm going to take some fabric paint. It's called Diamond. It's a company called Tulip Glitter, and the color is Diamond. It appears white right now, but it dries clear with glitter mixed in with it. And I'm just going to tie, or I'm sorry, not tie, but apply a thin coat on the back. Spread it with my bodkin a little bit, being very cautious not to get any of it into the rabbit. tiny, tiny bit of super glue. Again, being very, very cautious not to get it into the rabbit. If you get any of it into the rabbit at this point, we've pretty much ruined the fly. Just a tiny, tiny bit is all it takes. And when that dries, it'll be crystal clear. You'll see the pink underside with the glitter. Very, very fishy looking, very natural looking.